Where is your ego running you in different parts? Where is it serving you in a potentially negative way? Where is it serving you in a potentially positive way? And how can you leverage it for good?
What is one part of your ego that actually has been positive, that actually has served you? Is it still serving you? Is it something you want to keep, or do you want to transform it?
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was episode number 1257, the 3 big reasons why people fail. Today, for episode number 1258, happy Saturday. Are there positive parts to your ego too? So you have heard us talk many times about ego and how there's some negative things, there's some arrogance, there's a lot that can come with your ego. I was telling you this, Alan, I think, or maybe I was thinking of this and then it turned into an episode. For the longest time, probably for the last, 4 years maybe, I have had an understanding or an agreement with myself that getting up early equals good. Getting enough sleep, is after get up early, really. And there was a phase I went through where, and I remember this, I was like, I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep every night. And I remember how good I felt and how productive I was and how great that was. But then
Best thing ever.
It was awesome. It was awesome. But then I ended up just stopping that and saying, all right, I'm going to get up at 4 or 4:30 or 5 or whatever it is. For a long time, the positive part of my ego was getting up early will help you become successful. And that did serve me. I mean, I got a lot done in the morning and things were really good when I was doing that. But that eventually became not so sustainable. Today, so I got up today at 5 and I told you, I kind of felt like garbage. Like when I looked at the clock and it was already 5:07 when I went out to the kitchen, I was like, there's not enough time. I don't have enough time to do all this. So I made a shift recently where I ended up going back to my old gym, which is closer to my house. And I'm just going to learn. I'll just play the podcast to review it when I'm in the shower, and I'll just learn throughout the day rather than having to be in the car for 30 minutes a day. So I get to this gym, and I haven't been to this gym in a minute. And this gym is packed in the morning. Like there's a lot of people there at 5, 5:30, 6, even 4:30 when I go super early. But it also allows me to use a positive side of my ego. When you're in a gym and there's nobody around, it's harder to push yourself, for sure. It's definitely harder to push yourself. When you go to the gym and there's a lot of potential quote unquote competition, that's very inspirational. That's motivational. For me, it helps me tap into my ego a little bit of like, oh, okay, I'm going to show you. Now, I'm not really there to work out for anybody, but there is that level of positive ego where when you're around people that are crushing it, you want to crush it more. Definitely. And I experienced that today. That wasn't my goal with this episode, but I experienced that today. For the longest time, my ego had a positive spin that, look, you getting up early is really good for you. And it's really good for your success, and it separates you from most humans, and that's what's going to make you successful. I still believe those are all good things. The problem is I let that go from being a positive thing to a potentially negative thing when I stopped caring about sleep as much. And now I don't have my Oura ring on now, and now I have my Oura ring because Alan got one and I was like, is it worth getting? And Taryn got me one for Christmas. And I check my sleep score every day, and some days it's really good, some days it's not so good. But that's kind of my thought now is, okay, how do I, and maybe this isn't the right frame for this, but how do I transfer my ego to, I get 8 hours of sleep every night. Like that's not ego necessarily, but it could be. So that's kind of my goal in this episode is, number one, where is your ego running you in different parts? Where is it serving you in a potentially negative way? Where is it serving you in a potentially positive way? And how can you leverage it for good? I think oftentimes when we talk about the detriments of ego, a lot of that is just like autopilot stuff. But there's also potential positives and potential upsides to using your ego in a constructive way.
Well, I have a question. So what is the difference, Kev, between ego and identity?
I think ego is part I think it's like part of the identity. It's part of your identity. One side of the coin, potentially, is what I would say.
So I always think of ego as who you think you are versus who you really are. And there's a bunch of different sort of parts that we all have. If you've ever studied internal family systems, it's all about parts. And we have these different identities that are part of us. We have like a childhood version of us that loves movies or ice cream or whatever. And then we have the more evolved parts that are maybe more mature. And we're all sort of this, my IFS therapist talks about a solar system and how you're the sun and you have all these parts kind of revolving around the sun and you can deploy them as you want. But when it comes to the ego tends to be the part of you that is created as a trauma response, I think. So the ego tends to be the story you tell yourself about yourself when you are facing vulnerable emotions. And so, for example, if Kev was dealing with self-worth issues about his own value, when he doesn't wake up early, he develops an ego that says, I'm the kind of person who wakes up early and gets after it. That's kind of your trauma response to not feeling good enough, or not feeling productive, or not feeling effective, or not feeling valued or valuable. Probably not feeling valuable. And so when we don't believe in ourselves or we don't know our value intrinsically, we create these trauma responses, and these stories we tell ourselves about ourselves are the ego, aka identity. And I'm not fully sure that I understand the difference between ego and identity much, because I think they're kind of the same. I think we have multiple parts, and each of those parts have an identity, and it ends up being quite the rabbit hole. But what I will say is that I think the ego and or identity is what you have told yourself about yourself. And I often talk about these three circles, and if you're a new listener, this will be the first time, but the outer picture target, the symbol for target, the outer layer is who you want others to believe you are. The next layer is who you want to believe you are. And then the inner layer is who you really are. And so I'll use the example of there's a mother whose son goes to war, and they come back and tell her that the son died in war, and she creates this story she tells herself of that's not true. And she creates a cognitive distortion, is what it's called in psychology. And the cognitive distortion is my son will come back one day. Because the pain of the truth is too painful, she creates this alternative identity of not believing it. And it's a delusional. The reason why the ego is so negative, typically, to your point, is that delusional identity is creating a belief that is not based in reality, and therefore her decisions cannot be effective. So she can never really fully move on. She can never mourn the loss of her son if she doesn't believe her son is actually gone. And then one day she's going to have to face the fact, face the truth, face the music. There's a bunch of different terms for this. Where the ego can be a good thing is, I think, in circumstances where you are actually believing in something positive. You're believing in something that's constructive. That's what I would say. So, Kev, at one point, you believing waking up early made you better and productive and would be your key to success was actually serving you because it got you up early. Now it's actually hurting you because now you actually are super productive, and if you don't get good sleep, you're in trouble. And so what was once serving Kevin is now actually detrimental to Kevin. What was once constructive has now become destructive. And I think that's why, Kev, you and I always laugh and joke about growing pains, and growing pains episode 50. We've done a bunch of different episodes on growing pains. And the reason why is because we have these sort of mini midlife crises regularly, identity crises. And really what it is we are reevaluating our own ego, aka our own belief system about ourselves, so that we can be more effective as we grow and scale, both in our lives personally and professionally. And so that's kind of my understanding of it. And I guess the question I wrote down here that I would have everyone ask is, what is one part of your ego that actually has been positive, that actually has served you? Is it still serving you? Is it something you want to keep, or do you want to transform it? And this is the analogy I always use. Phoenix burns down, and then the new phoenix rises from the ashes. this is the metaphor for ego. After my car accident, after your suicidal ideation, our old identity had to burn down. Because when you face death, you're just left with truth, a lot of truth. A lot of, I'm not confident. For you, it was, I'm not confident. I'm not, I don't feel good about myself. I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. For me, it was, I'm not fulfilled. For me, it was, I have a ton of regret. For me, it was, I've surrounded myself with persons, places, things, and ideas that are not aligned. And I need to change. So my phoenix burnt down, and now I can evolve my ego into something that actually does serve fulfillment. And I think that everyone goes through this process as they grow and they get older. You and I recently, Kev, we were looking at old episodes, and it was hard for us to listen because you can hear the ego there. That's an old identity. That's no longer, we don't identify with that anymore. And hopefully that's a good synopsis.
I had a moment the other day. I went to the gym on I think it was a Sunday. It was either Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and I never go to the gym in the afternoon. It's usually morning. Like 99% of the time I go to the gym in the morning. And I had this interesting moment where I looked around and I was like, what are they feeding these people? Like, everybody in here is jacked. Like, they're all like, these young high school kids are like jacked. Like, what are you eating? And I had this moment like, dude, 10 years ago, not 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, I had the ego of I had the identity of, I'm going to be in the best shape. Almost, and anytime I go to a gym, I'm going to be in probably one of the top 3 people.
I remember.
And that's for a long, how well did that serve me? I mean, that served me. I definitely lifted heavier weight. I was definitely more focused. So that's what I was trying to connect with. Here's a great one. And again, you can take this too far, but if you're somebody who is like a little bit insecure, and say you go to an event and your ego convinces you that it's such a rabbit hole. It convinces you that you're way better than you think. And and again, not intrinsically, but just like as you're showing up, and you carry yourself in a different way, you're probably going to get better results.
Hey guys, my name is Jacob Valdellon, and I just finished Next Level group coaching. When I joined, I wasn't sure what I was walking into. But during the entire course and the program, I figured out it's not something that I wanted to do, it's something I needed to do. They helped set me on the right path with learning how to do PPTs, peak performance tracking, and every 2 weeks I was gaining new awarenesses and getting a lot more happier, first of all, my health, wealth, and love, but also winning more practically and tactically in business. So if you're looking to upgrade your life and get to that next level, definitely sign up for that group coaching.
Kev, that is why people have big egos, especially goal-oriented people. Really goal-oriented people have egos because they've had to do what you just described. Instead of, I'm fearful and I'm scared and I want to be vulnerable and I want to be authentic and I want to tell the audience I'm scared, they would rather have the air of confidence. So they pretend, and this is why social media is so scary. Because some of the people that are the most insecure, I was watching a video recently, Kev, you'll like this. This guy without ego was really breaking down how there's an inverse correlation between how carefully someone orchestrates their social media and how insecure they actually are in their real life. And you and I have witnessed this time and time again. We've interviewed hundreds of people at this point all over the world, and we actually stopped interviewing people because we want to pull back the curtain on the truth, and some people aren't willing to go there with us for our listeners. And we've found a direct correlation between really good marketing and deep insecurity. And we've been guilty of that too in the past too. I remember when I was younger, I was much more cautious of what pictures got posted. Now I don't really care that much. But that's because I'm now more comfortable in my own skin. Whereas before I told myself a story I was, which is ego. It's the false belief. See the difference? One is I I'm scared deep down, but I'm going to pretend I'm not, and I'm going to act really confident. Versus, like you on the first episode, me too, by the way, me too, 100%. Versus we actually are pretty comfortable on these mics, so we don't really need to like fake it till we make it. And I think that fake it till you make it is basically create an ego, create an identity of someone who's confident instead of actually building real confidence through actual work. And when I was younger and you and I didn't get along, this is why. You had deep insecurity and owned it probably. And you probably saw my ego, which was an inflated protector that was probably rooted in some truth, but some of it was also inflated. And I didn't know that because I was just a kid. But I see this everywhere now. I really do. Vulnerability. You know what you witnessed? A lack of vulnerability. That's really what it was. That's why you didn't like me in high school. Because you knew that I wasn't willing to be vulnerable.
Well, I think I knew that there's no way your truth was what you said it was.
Right.
Not even what you said,
but
just what you...
But it was definitely the way I held myself. But it was definitely more than you thought it was, which is interesting.
That's fair, yeah.
And that's been, in hindsight, Kevin and I getting along is a spiritual miracle is what I call it. Because in high school, he was deeply insecure, and I was extremely, extremely confident, and I had a bit of an ego, and Kevin had, a lot of disdain for ego. And so the fact that you and I, same. Well, there's bigger downsides than there are upsides, I think, at least when it comes to real life. When it comes to success, though, Kev, I mean, you've been studying and interviewing successful millionaires and all that stuff. Like, what's your take on this? I mean, I've noticed a direct correlation between success and ego.
I think it's good to have behind the scenes with yourself. Probably not. It's a good dish to eat by yourself, but it's probably not a good one to bring to dinner.
Fire.
Depending on the even the way you said it, it's like, I don't know. When I think ego, I don't think vulnerability. For me, ego has taken on such like a negative.
Well, ego is a lack of vulnerability.
But what is ego?
I think
just
ego
the difference between the truth and the truth you admit.
Yeah, it's kind of it's like someone who acts like they're a great fighter when they're really not.
But can't that go the other way? Like you're way more good than you take credit for?
Yes, definitely.
So
which is why it's so confusing.
Yeah, it is. It's a tough thing. This is one of those episodes where like I don't know if you're going to get an answer. I don't know if you're. I mean, I'm sure you'll leave with a new awareness, and that's always my goal. I don't know if I have the answer to the question.
I would say ego is inflated or deflated self-understanding.
Yeah.
AKA a lack of self-awareness and vulnerability. Because vulnerability is just sitting in what you are. Sometimes it is vulnerable for me to sit in the truth of being smarter than someone in math. Because it's vulnerable for me because I feel their discomfort. Mm. And then other times it's vulnerable for me to say, honestly, I'm not that strong in the gym and I kind of feel weak sometimes, especially when I'm cutting. Because it's hard to own the truth of that. I think that's what it is. I think ego is anything outside of the truth. Knowing you'll never fully get to the truth, but you can always get closer. And you and I still have egos. We just have less than we used to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. It's an interesting topic. It's an interesting topic. So maybe the reframe is where is ego running you most? I feel like at this point I have very little. I just kind of jump on here and try to just be me, way more than ever. I mean, is there a protector? Sure. It's less than ever, though. That I'm certain of. I can tell by just some of the stories I use, but I can always tell when I listen back, it's like, oh, I was so guarded. I wanted people to think I knew it all. That was like important to me, especially early on.
Okay. Why? Real quick. I know we got to go, but
I was afraid that people wouldn't value me if I didn't. It's like, we have a podcast. My goal is to help people. Like if I don't have the answers to everything, I can't help that. Yeah.
And as you actually learn, this is the ironic thing, as you actually became more aware and now you really do have more answers, now you are not acting like it. So what if the whole world is being influenced by people who are pretending to know more than they do, and the people who are barking less loud are the ones who actually know more?
It's possible.
And that's one of the things that I've been contemplating lately, and how to solve that in the world. Because what if the people that are the best at marketing are actually the least aware?
Or the most, that's the interesting thing, is like maybe they're more aware of that, but they're less aware of something else. Yeah.
Right. So
deep.
Hyperconscious.
This was a hyperconscious episode. I'm glad this went the way it did, because again, Alan and I probably learn more from these episodes than anybody else, which is a benefit of the job and is a benefit of doing it. But this is one of those ones where even when I said the title, it's like, I don't really know where this is going to go necessarily. I know it'll be good because we're going to contemplate. I know it'll be powerful if you're listening, because you'll contemplate with us. That's always the goal. That's always the hope. But it's one of those ones where I don't necessarily have a resolution. I don't necessarily know, opening chapter, middle chapter, end chapter, conclusion. I don't know if I have a conclusion. I think the conclusion is to keep asking yourself questions about yourself. I think that's always going to be my through line conclusion. So I'm glad we did this.
Me too, brother. Conversations do change lives.
Oh, would you?
When they're
pipe
hyperconscious.
Down. Yeah, well, hyperconscious conversations
Gotta give a
change
throwback
lives.
every now and then.
Why don't we do that? Hyperconscious conversations change lives.
That's fire.
But so much better.
I like that.
You don't like it
You're
as much?
supposed to be the one who titles stuff. No, I do.
Well, back then, we didn't know that.
We didn't know anything.
Yeah, we didn't know anything back then. But we thought we did.
Yeah, yeah, you certainly did. No, I definitely did too. Are you kidding me? Let me get on my whiteboard and teach you stuff.
Speaking of knowing everything.
Yeah.
We don't. But we have a meetup. I don't know. Do you know when the date is? No clue, right?
Oh my God. No,
yeah, it's the first Thursday of March. I think it's April. No, it's not.
I meant to say I'm on it, and I said I'm on you.
On you.
I'm on you. Don't even
we have a meetup. So we do a meetup, a free behind the scenes where you can get to know Alan and I, but you can come with questions. It's just, we want it to be a non-intimidating way to get a little bit better. That's really everything that we do. It's three big things holding you back from success. What day is it?
March 2nd, 2023 at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
So totally free, no money, no funds to be exchanged, totally private. So if you sign up, we'll have the link in the show notes. It'll give you the login to the Zoom room. It's totally private. We don't record it. We don't share it anywhere. It's really just Alan and I saying, all right, we're going to pick a topic and we're going to present on it for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And then we want to do like a conversation amongst the community. That really is what we're aiming for. We take questions throughout the whole thing. You don't have to have your camera on. You don't have to have your microphone on. You don't have to participate. You're more than welcome to participate. It's probably as, what's the word I'm looking for?
Casual?
Yeah, probably as casual as you think. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do, is make it a casual experience. So if you're interested, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to the Zoom registration link. It'll auto add to your calendar and all that happy jazz, and just show up and be you.
It is a meetup. It's called a meetup for a reason, so we want to meet you. Please join us. Please, please, please join us. We love meeting our listeners. That is
That's a fact.
The main goal. Create a community of like-minded growth dream chasers. That is the goal. All right, so I'm just going to read this. 39 days out from Next Level Live. 39 days from now, we will all be in a room. This will not be a presentation.
No.
This will not be a speech. This will not be a lecture. This will be an experience.
Hell yes.
We hope you decide to get outside your comfort zone and join us. Come meet other NLU listeners and the NLU team. We're going to have OG Amy there. Jenna's coming. Jesse, Amy L, Christina, myself, Kevin, Jen. You're going to meet Taryn, Kevin's wife. You're going to meet Emilia, my beautiful girlfriend. It's going to be amazing.
We're going to bring the cats and the dogs? The dog?
No, I don't think we should. I don't know.
We can't. Legally, I don't think.
No, probably not. Get around like-minded people who will support your goals and your growth. We are keeping this small and intimate on purpose. That's the key thing. This is going to be small. Only 50 people, heart-driven, but no BS. I wrote DM me if you're interested. If you're interested, click the link in the show notes and check out the landing page at very least. Check out the photos from last year. Check out the video in particular. Unbelievable. And again, it is going to be nothing short of transformational. We actually the itinerary on there is on point. We're going to have 3 different groups. It's going to be awesome. So please join us. Click the link below.
I'm laughing if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're not, because I can see Ace is sticking his paw under the door because it's time to EAT, and he like sticks his paw under the door, and I can see it. It's like a scene from a horror movie. Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1259. Self-esteem, constructive versus destructive. Alan, you came up with that one, so I'm hoping you're going to tell me what we're talking about because I do not yet know. But as always, it's going to be a valuable episode because
I have no idea what that is.
All right, perfect. Here we go.
Joking.
As always, we love you. We appreciate you. We are grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow with hopefully a valuable episode.
Please reach out.